Ever had a mosquito buzzing around you while you're trying to conquer the world in an RPG game? Well, some monsters are just like that mosquito. Annoying but hardly lethal. You know, the kind that you swat away without a second thought. But just like that mosquito, they're part of the gaming ecosystem, adding a dash of humor, a pinch of irritation, and a whole lot of unforgettable experiences. In the vast universe of role-playing games, we encounter a variety of monsters, each with their unique attributes, strengths, and weaknesses. Some are formidable foes, challenging our skills to the maximum, while others, well, let's just say they couldn't scare a level 1 newbie. These are the creatures that are so feeble, so unthreatening, they barely qualify as monsters. They're the underdogs of the digital world, armed with low hit points, weak attacks, and movement so predictable you'd think they're performing a rehearsed dance routine. Now, what makes a monster weak? Most times it's a combination of factors. Low hit points or HP are a major giveaway. The lesser the HP, the easier they are to defeat. Then there's the question of their attacks. Are they so weak that a feather duster could do more damage? And let's not forget about their movements. If they're as easy to dodge as a snail on a sunny day, you're dealing with a weak monster. But don't let their lack of strength fool you. They might not pose a big threat, but they're an integral part of the game. They provide comic relief, help you level up in the early stages, and sometimes, just sometimes, they could surprise you with their stubborn resilience. So without further ado, let's dive into our countdown of the top 5 weakest monsters in RPG games. These are the creatures you'll encounter on your epic quests, the ones that you'll look back on and laugh about once you've scaled the heights of gaming glory. Remember, every hero needs a villain, even if that villain is about as threatening as a fluffy kitten. Starting off our countdown at number 5 is the humble slime. Yes, folks, the gelatinous, gooey creature that has become somewhat of a mascot for the genre over the years. The slime, in all its squishy glory, is usually the first enemy that players encounter in a game. It's the monster equivalent of training wheels, designed to help gamers get a feel for the combat system without posing any real threat. What's its defining characteristic? Well, it's a blob. A harmless, wobbly blob. It's almost as if the game designers ran out of scary attributes and thought, let's just make it a jelly-like creature that can't even hold a weapon. So what makes the slime so weak? Well, for starters, it's incredibly slow. You could probably finish a cup of tea before it manages to inch its way towards you. And when it does finally reach you, its attacks are about as damaging as a feather duster. It's so weak, it's almost endearing. But how, you might ask, could anyone possibly die from a slime? Well, let me tell you, it's not the slime's attack you should be wary of. No, the real danger is complacency. You see, the slime is so weak, so non-threatening, that players often underestimate it. They let their guard down, get distracted, and before they know it, they're surrounded by an army of slimes, all wobbling menacingly. And then, it's game over, folks. Now, before we move on to our 4th weakest monster, don't forget to subscribe, follow, like, comment, and share this video to your fellow RPG enthusiasts. We got plenty more hilariously weak monsters to cover, and you won't want to miss it. Moving on, the 4th weakest monster in our countdown is the humble slime. Now, don't let their gelatinous appearance fool you. These little blobs are known for their slow movement and low attack power. They're the epitome of weak, often serving as the first hurdle for beginners in many role-playing games. Why are they so weak, you may ask? Well, the slime's simplicity is its downfall. It lacks any real special abilities or defenses, making it an easy target for even the most novice of players. But how could one possibly die at the hands of a slime? Well, despite their weakness, slimes can be surprisingly persistent. Picture this. You're a new player, you've underestimated the slime's tenacity, and before you know it, you're surrounded by a horde of them, chipping away at your health one tiny hit at a time. Stay with us as we move closer to the number 1 spot. At number 3 on our list, we have the notorious yet often underestimated slime. Slimes are the quintessential beginner monster, found in countless RPGs. They're squishy, slow, and their attacks are, well, laughable. Why are they so weak, you ask? It's simple. Slimes are designed to be easy targets, the punching bags of the RPG world. They're usually the first monster you encounter in a game, teaching you the basics of combat without posing a real threat. But let's say, hypothetically, you wanted to die from a slime. You'd have to really try. Maybe stand still for a long time, or better yet, just put down the controller and go make a sandwich. By the time you're back, the slime might, just might, have managed to deplete your health bar. we're getting closer to our weakest monster. Stick around to find out who takes the top spot. Just missing out on the top spot, the second weakest monster is the humble slime. Yes, folks, it's the adorable blob of goo that has become a staple in many RPG games. The slime is typically the first enemy you encounter on your heroic journey. Its main characteristics? Well, it's gooey. It's often green, sometimes blue, and occasionally, for a bit of variety, it's red. But the color doesn't really matter because the slime is as harmless as a bowl of jelly. Its attack power? Virtually non-existent. It usually attacks by trying to squish itself against you. It's like being attacked by a very determined marshmallow. Its defense? Equally laughable. One hit from your starting weapon, even if it's just a rusty old sword, is often enough to turn the slime into a puddle of, slime. So why is the slime so weak? It's because it's meant to be. The slime is there to make you feel good about yourself. It's there to give you a sense of achievement right at the start of your journey, to make you think, hey, I can do this, I can be a hero. But how might one accidentally die from a slime? Well, it takes a special combination of overconfidence and carelessness. You might think it's just a slime. What's it going to do? Give me a hug? And then you ignore it. You let it follow you around while you're busy looting. And before you know it, you've been slimed to death. It's a slow, embarrassing way to go. So remember, folks, respect the slime. It might be weak, but it's doing its best. And sometimes, its best is just enough to catch you off guard. It's time for the moment we've all been waiting for, the weakest monster in RPG games. And now, the weakest monster in RPG games is, drumroll please, the humble slime. Yes, that's right, the gelatinous, blob-like creature that's more likely to be stepped on than feared. The slime is infamous in the RPG world, often the first enemy a player encounters and hardly poses a threat. With its low hit points and minimal damage, it's more of a tutorial monster than an actual adversary. Now let's take a closer look at its characteristics. The slime is often depicted as a squishy, jelly-like creature, often green but can come in a variety of colors. It typically has no limbs or discernible features except for a pair of googly eyes. Its attacks are as basic as they come, a simple body slam that does minimal damage. So, why is the slime considered the weakest monster? Well, it boils down to three main factors. Lack of offensive abilities, low defensive stats, and predictable patterns. The slime's attacks are laughably weak, often taking several hits to whittle down even the most novice player's health. And with its squishy constitution, a few well-aimed blows are enough to dispatch it. As for its patterns, the slime is as straightforward as they come. It moves towards the player, attacks, and repeats. No fancy tactics, no cunning strategies, just a harmless blob doing its best. Now you might be wondering, how can one possibly die from a slime? Well, underestimating these squishy foes is the first step towards an embarrassing defeat. Perhaps you're distracted. Or maybe you've let your health dwindle too low, thinking the slime poses no real threat. Or perhaps you've encountered a horde of slimes, their numbers making up for their individual weakness. Whatever the case, remember, even the simplest of creatures can pose a threat if underestimated. And there you have it, folks. The weakest monsters in RPG games. Remember, even the weakest monster can be a threat if you're not careful.